Y'all, it is April Fool's Day 2026, and this is Spencer Keck with the Hillbilly Think Tank. And I'm coming at you live from Tunnel Hills here in Hardin County, Kentucky, where we live for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, I am the educated hillbilly here at the Hillbilly Think Tank. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. Y'all, there have been emancipated, educated, and erudite rural folks ever since Kentucky began. Bank on it. Now, we know that tonight there's going to be a big speech come on. And Lord knows I am hoping that this speech is going to be about how our president is going to declare victory and we're going to run the heck out of Iran and the Persian Gulf. Hopefully, folks can figure out how to get our economy back on track. But my question for you tonight is the economy this year better than it was last year? Let me know. Go ahead and give me a call. My line is open. My phone number is posted there, 606-253-9885. Give me your opinion. Is it better now than it was a year ago? Or is it way worse this year than it was last year or 18 months ago? So phone lines open. And in the meantime, y'all, most of us know that we left a 20-year war in Afghanistan and OEF in 2022 after never having a clear strategic goal in that nation and that region. And we lost so many good folks there. So many folks that I know and care for and love, including my brother, lost their lives in Afghanistan. Now, when the attack happened, like I said before, I was in the region and I was glad to go into that country because I knew that we'd been attacked and that we need to do something about it. So I am not, though, willing to see other folks lose their lives when there's no clear goal. We've got to have a strategic end goal. We didn't have that in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2022. So, what do you guys think? All right, let's see who we got here tonight. Tom said, sorry, I missed the phone number. Who the phone number reaches? It reaches me. Yes, I know the economy is far worse than it was 16 months ago. All right, so let's consider, what is this war economy doing for you and for me? Is it helping you have more food at night? Is it helping you make sure that your kids are fed at night? Or is it taking food out of their mouths because it costs more to fill up the truck than it did just, a few months ago? Now, like I said, whether the attack happened, I gladly went into Pakistan and Afghanistan after the attack happened. And for most of my adult life, I was in the military. That's what I knew from 1990 to 2014. I served proudly wearing our nation's uniform around this nation and around the world. But Afghanistan, became a quagmire. Why did it become a quagmire? Well, we went into Pakistan, Afghanistan. after the attack happened, and we didn't do anything close to what we should have. We could have caught the perpetrator of the attack of 2011 quickly if we had set the hounds of war completely loose. But we didn't, because Rumsfeld and Cheney's cohorts were already planning a way to get us into Iraq, trumping up some crazy cockamamie bull about weapons of mass destruction. So without completing what we should have in Afghanistan, the Marines that I went in with, we left. And, in 2003, we know what happened. We set up our nation for a 20-year war because we dropped the ball in Afghanistan. And I was appalled and heartbroken when my brother lost his leg and hand in Afghanistan around 8 years after I was there, all because we left Afghanistan behind to invade Iraq on the 20th of March, 2003. And we let the worst of the worst become further entrenched in Afghanistan. That's the Taliban, as we neglected that country to take out Saddam Hussein in Iraq and give bin Laden time to hide in Pakistan for 10 years till he was killed on the 2nd of May, 2011. So while the majority of U.S. forces deployed to Iraq under the falsehood of weapons of mass destruction, the Taliban took over Afghanistan. And when the U.S. finally went back, it was obvious for years that Afghanistan was an endless quagmire that we should have left in 2012, not long after taking out bin Laden. Well, thing is, now Chechnya, this is a region of Russia that is majority Muslim. And it says it will send Chechen shock troops into Iran to help the Iranian army. Right? It's going to help the Iranian forces if the U.S. troops head into Iran. They say it will be part of a jihad for them. And if this happens, and Iran has allies in the Houthis and the Chechens, this war will become a brutal one. And now Iraq, in addition, has said it will help Iran. Now, if you remember, guys, just a week or less ago, I told you that we set up this problem when we invaded Iraq. Iraq was controlled by a brutal dictator, no doubt, but that brutal dictator was not an ally of Iran. They fought a bloody, brutal war, which we were glad for it to keep on going. That way it kept those Iran on its toes, always on its heels, actually. But when we decided that then we had no more use for Saddam Hussein and we needed to take him out, we took out the Sunni Ba'ath Party that he had in place. And the Sunnis were the minority that were brutally ruling the Shia majority in Iraq. And as I pointed out the other night, Iran is Shia majority. Now Iraq has a Shia majority government and military. And Iran has been in there working with and training the Shias in Iraq ever since we toppled the Ba'ath Party, the Sunnis. So we set ourselves up for this absolute stupidity. We did it back in 2003, 2004, when we made sure that the Sunnis had no power in Iraq. So Shia Muslims will help Shia Muslims. The Houthis will help in Yemen. The Iraqis right next door to Iran, they're already saying they will help. And once Iraqi's Shia majority comes to their aid, this is not going to be good if our troops actually are sent in there. So I hope tonight our fearless leader is going to tell us we've got victory now in Iran and the boys are coming home. But here's what's going on right now tonight. All right, so that is what we're looking at. We've got plenty of troops over there right now, but not plenty enough. It's what, over 50,000? This is not something that we have well thought out well at all. So, actually, did I actually share that? Hopefully. All right. Next up, like I said, Chechen troops, they are ready. And they said they're going to go on in and help out the Iranians. So this is not something we've properly planned for. This is not something that this administration is expecting. And this wasn't part of the war games. It should have been. We should have already known this was coming. But unfortunately, we don't have a real plan. So without a real plan, we're stuck in a quagmire if we actually go in. All right, y'all, let's take time for a little funny here with the dogs, take a little break. Be right back to give you a little more of the urgent news that we got going on.
I'll prove myself in cold cases. Maybe things can go back to the way they were.
The way things were might not exist anymore. Val, need a word.
Harry.
Clean tags, what good does that do if there's not enough guys to move it? I mean, am I the only one with any idea how fucking huge this deal is for us? Hey, look who it is. Makes you show up for work. What's going on?
Iranian state media is now claiming that combat units from Russia's Chechen Republic have declared themselves ready to deploy to Iran if the United States launches a ground invasion. According to Press TV, these forces are loyal to Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov and have told Tehran they will fight alongside the Iranian armed forces if US troops move beyond air and missile strikes onto Iranian soil. The reports describe the ongoing US-Israeli war against Iran as a religious war and say the Chechen side is framing any direct intervention as a jihad, a battle of good versus evil in defense of the Islamic Republic. These claims surface just as US officials openly discuss limited ground raids inside Iran, including possible assaults on Karg Island and coastal sites near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's top military command has responded with its own rhetoric, vowing to cut off the legs of any aggressor who tries to set foot on Iranian territory, and insisting the country is waiting for a ground invasion to prove it can destroy invading forces. Iranian outlets say more than 1 million fighters, a mix of regular troops, Revolutionary Guard units and Basi volunteers, have been mobilized nationwide, while new reinforcements and air defense systems are being dug in along key fronts. Against that backdrop, talk of Chechen reinforcements is meant to signal that any US move on the ground might not just pit Washington against Tehran, but risk pulling in Russian-aligned fighters as well. Chechen commander Abdi Alaudinov, whose Akhmat units have been fighting in Ukraine, has already said publicly that his men are waiting for an order from Vladimir Putin to confront US forces if war spills into Iran. Iranian and sympathetic media are now amplifying those statements to suggest that the same Chechen formations used as shock troops in Ukraine could appear on a new front in the Gulf, blurring the line between the Ukraine war and the Iran conflict. For now, there is no independent confirmation that any Chechen units are actually moving toward Iran. But the messaging alone feeds a narrative in Tehran that if the US crosses the threshold into a ground invasion, it could find itself facing not just Iran's own forces, but foreign fighters who see the fight as part of a wider jihad against American power.
All right. Well, got to be God honestly true with you. That's terrifying because I had no idea that Chechnya is now on the side of Russia, the country that it attacked for many years to try to become completely independent. I did not know that they were on Putin's side now. That is not at all a positive thing for us or for any troops that may need to go in there. Yeah, copycats have been saying the exact same thing. Enlist the Trump kids and release the Trumpstein files already. And Tom says, with Chechnya getting involved after pitching munitions at its neighbors, it becomes a world war. Right, because now, man, so Chechnya is already being used by Russia to attack Ukraine, and then they're more than willing to go attack the United States if Iran is attacked, because they're going to come to the aid more gladly of another Muslim country. So Tom says enlist Trump's kids. Nah, that would imply them being willing to go conscript them. Exactly. Force them. Absolutely. Especially when our leader is talking about other countries not being brave enough to go fight in the Strait of Hormuz. All right. Well, so if Chechnya is going to hop into this, and then these guys are going to hop into this, this is going to be a hot mess.
As West Asia has entered the fifth week of that war, U.S. President Donald Trump insisting that a deal with Iran is possible. At the same time, the region is witnessing massive military deployment. Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces now joining forces with Iran. As per reports, a convoy belonging to PMF, consisting of pickup trucks and men in military attire, entered Iran over the last weekend. While Iranian state media described it as a humanitarian convoy carrying 70 tons of food and medical supplies, this has larger implications in the context of the ongoing war. Just to tell you more about the PMF and why this is significant in the current scenario. It's basically an umbrella organization of armed Shia groups. It was formed in 2014 to fight the ISIS. It is believed to have close ties with Iran. In 2016, the government formally integrated PMF as part of the Iraqi armed forces, but designated it as an independent military formation. As per estimates, PMF is believed to have close to 238,000 fighters with an annual budget of $3.6 billion US. On the 28th of March, PMF's headquarters in Iraq's Kirkuk, located adjacent to a police facility, hit in an airstrike, leading to the deaths of at least 2 policemen. The Iran-backed outfit squarely placing the blame on Israel and the US. Early this week, BMF sites in central Iraq's Babil province and western Iraq's Anbar province were also attacked. And a week ago, Iraq granted the BMF the right to defend itself in the wake of the West Asia War.
وفي ضوء الاعتداءات.
So, once again, if you have Chechen fighters in Iran, if you've got 238,000 Iraqi Shia militants in Iran, and you have Houthis from Yemen involved in this conflict, yes, as Tom was just saying, this is going to get out of control. We are on the brink. I hope tonight we actually get some sense from our fearless leader. So Tom says, and their combat headgear needs to be bright red. Yeah. Yep. So that's that realm. So like I say, anybody want to tell me how they think this is helping out our Hardin County economy? This is going to definitely choke off the urea that we need for our fertilizer. Fertilizer prices, like I said, are going up already in price. And the farmer that I've talked to say, hey, they might not be able to put any fertilizer in their fields this year. They might have to plant without it. And that is not something that they have, prepared themselves for. Regenerative farming has not taken over here yet. So this is not something Hardin County needs. Farmers can't even afford to fill up their tanks with diesel on the property where they're going to be plowing, let alone the tractors they're going to use diesel from those tanks. We are in a financial crisis. This county, yes, we have a military base in Fort Knox that, adds some insulation, but it is not the end all be all for the county. Our farmers are. Our agricultural way of life, our rural farming community is the backbone of this place we live. And yet, who is it that is deployed on these ships with the Marines and the sailors? A lot of folks from Kentucky and all over this region, not just Kentucky. And we're going to be asking them, demanding that they go fight against these enemies that there is no plan for this. There is no strategic plan. There's no good way this can end. And I'm not usually a doomsday person when it comes to this type of thing, but we have to really consider what is going on here. Consider the real cost, the real lack of planning. And as we say in the military, lack of planning on your part is not emergency on my part. Well, right now, it is emergency for all of us. We also say lack of a plan is a plan to fail. And this absolutely, there is no coherent plan here. No one really is going into this with anything but their head up their ass. I mean, that's all we can really say about this. So any other thoughts out there? Like I said, if you want to call in, the number is 606-253-9885. I got about 5 more minutes. We'll be on here before we got to sign off. Tom Armstrong says the words urea and urine are closely related. And when we reduce the urea shortage, we can all relieve ourselves on the regime. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Let's look at what one of the defectors from the administration had to say about what is going on. What he saw was the plan, and yeah, he was not down with it. So this is Joe Kent. We know he used to be the director of the NCTC, and this is him on the Sean Ryan show.
So we will say that Israel is our ally in this. They're basically our co-equal in this. People like me will say, actually, we're not really even co-equals. They're leading because we're having to react to them. But either way, we're basically joined at the hip with the Israelis. Now, the problem is they have a much different strategic goal and a much, I'd say, higher threshold and tolerance for chaos and bloodshed than we do. Now, we have stated that our strategic goal, you'll hear Secretary Hegseth rattle these off at his morning briefings that he gives to the media. It's to destroy the Iranian Navy, to destroy the IRGC, to destroy their ballistic missile capability, to destroy all their enrichment. So we kind of have a checklist of like things that we want to bomb, essentially, to take off the battlefield. That's about as far as we've gone with stating what our strategic goal is, which I think is a big problem that we have with the GWAT, is we never really said what our strategic goal was. Obviously, there was get bin Laden and make sure the homeland isn't attacked. But I just remember being in Iraq, being like, what's the goal here? Like, we're building a government. So same thing. We didn't really learn that lesson. We haven't stated our strategic goal. The Israelis, as critical as I am of our relationship with the Israelis have a very clear strategic goal. And that is to take out this regime lock, stock, and barrel. That's to get rid of the Ayatollahs, the clerical class that rules over, and then also the IRGC, which is a huge lift. It's a big country. Those institutions are massive. They've got a lot of support, but that's the Israelis' goal. Now, the Israelis don't really care necessarily if that happens and Iran then slips into chaos and the Straits of Hormuz remains inflamed and there's a migration crisis and there's an ongoing war. The Israelis don't care about that. They care that the IRGC and the Ayatollahs can no longer fund their proxies or cause them problems inside of Israel. So again, you've got us footing the bill, doing the majority of the combat, doing the dying, doing the fighting. We have a very, very murky strategic objective, whereas the Israelis are driving this. They're driving essentially our commitment of combat power. They're driving us having people lose their lives. They have a very clear strategic objective. And this is why I say the number one thing we have to do in order to get out of this is to restrain the Israelis and get our relationship with Israel straight. Otherwise, it's all going to be for naught, and we're going to continue to get sucked in further and further.
So another important thing that they don't talk about right here is the fact that right now, Saudi Arabia and other Sunni Arab countries want us to go in and invade also, because that is their enemy. Again, it's the Shia against Sunni struggle that's been going on since after Muhammad died. They have not gotten along, and it's more than not gotten along. They are enemies. Persia was an ancient force there that controlled much of the region, eons ago. The Turks ran the whole area for a long time after that. But this whole thing is something that Saudis are quite willing also to have us sacrifice our sons and daughters. And, I've trained with their military and trained their military, and their military is worth jack shit. It's completely a system over there of who you know and what you know. The officers are only officers because they were someone's cousin, someone's brother, someone's son, related to the prince, did a favor for the prince. There's no meritocracy in their military. And as soon as their expensive weapons would jam or get a little dirty, they just toss them in the sand, walk away. We'd be amazed, like, oh my God, that's the kind of weapon I always wanted, instead of this M16 that we had at the time. Yeah. They're willing to sacrifice American sons and daughters for their beef with the Shias and with Iran. And they're willing also to see us get drug into it. So, are we that willing to die for Saudi oil? That's my question, and always has been. So both countries, they don't give a crap about it. All right, y'all. I'm going to sign off here, but just want everyone to remember, here in Kentucky, united we stand, divided we fall. We know that that's not just a motto. That is what keeps us from falling. We are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. We love our neighbors as ourselves here in Kentucky. Bless your corazon. Remember everyone deployed. And by God, I hope we get good news tonight and find out that we are not heading into war here in the next few days. That no one can pull us into something we don't need to be in.
He did, because when the bank foreclosed on farms across the